I've never met her. I never met my grandmother. I was born 5 years later and given her name. And so I just believe that I became a journalist, that I was given this name so that I could tell her story. It won't let go of me. When I tell you it'll wake me up out of my sleep, or it'll come up in conversation, or I'll just look around at my family and see what's happening and see people suffering with PTSD who might not have the language because they've never talked to a therapist. The trauma wound can be passed down. And so I just want to heal. And I believe that I am walking in my grandmother's legacy in that way. I might can't cook like I can cook. I can cook for the record, but maybe I can't do it like she did. Maybe that's not my ministry, but my ministry is comedy and storytelling. What's up, everybody? It's comedian Georgia Dawkins, and I'm back in the car with Raina for Dreams in Drive.
Hey Dream Driver, stay in the guest chair. We have Georgia Dawkins, a dynamic comedian and storyteller whose sharp wit and commanding stage presence leave a lasting impression. We first heard from Georgia back in 2023 on episode 373, where she shared her story of growing up in the media industry and eventually transitioning into a new love of hers, which was comedy. Georgia is back in the guest chair to talk about where she's been since then and her path to a new stop along her journey, which is producing and bringing to life the tragic story of her grandmother's death in the forthcoming documentary, The Wing Ding Queen. Though the story itself is tragic, Georgia talks about how she, her family, and overall community of Sebring, Florida, were able to find purpose and healing. We get real about the many lessons she's had to go through to continue to grow as a dream driver in order to get there. If you want to be tapped into her story and learn about how you can lean into the power of your own as well, please go to dreamsanddrive.com/join to sign up for our weekly email newsletter to get actionable tips on how you can take your dreams out of park and into drive. All right, let's hear from Georgia. Hi, Georgia. Welcome to Dreams and Drive. Back in the guest chair. Our original episode was back in 2023, episode 373. Can you believe it? It's almost been 2 years since we've last spoken on this platform.
That's a testimony. That's wild that you let me get back in the car. That's crazy. Thank you so much.
And I think on that episode, I was listening to it early this morning. We really were. I was like, so where are we? Where are we driving to? Because we were going all around the U.S., in and out. We were at your cousin's house at one point. We were in New York at some point. We were back in Florida at some point. So I think that this episode is going to be so great because like every journey, right? It just keeps on going, and you've gone and you've traveled so much since that first time we talked in 2023. When we were last in the car, right? You were somebody. How would you describe that person who you were then?
Oh man, I love that episode. I went back and I was like, I said, what? Like, and so much of that conversation has become material in my comedy sets. But that person is very ambitious, very, very ambitious, very bold, very courageous, very resilient. And I am so grateful for her and who she was 2 years ago, because it's definitely influenced who I am today. And I often look back on that conversation and journal entries and sometimes emails to be like, where was I? Because sometimes it feels like I'm so far away from that person or so far away from that dream.
You know, it's interesting because I think during that conversation, we talked a lot about these childhood dreams you had of being Oprah, right? That was a person that you had on the pedestal. You're like, I'm trying to be Oprah. I might still want to be Oprah. You were still very much kind of dabbling in media, really pursuing the comedy full frontal. Do you still want to be Oprah, or is the media behind you?
Oh no, media is always in front of me. That's my gift, honey. I'm a walk-in production. Anybody will tell you that. I got a tripod on my nightstand. People don't think it's a tripod, but it is because it collapses and it looks a little phallic. But anyway, it is a tripod. I always have a light on me. Like production, storytelling is my DNA. Like I can't run from that. The media industry, however, I have a complicated relationship with, especially in these times. And I've even tried to go back to the thing that I was delivered from, go back for the sake of stability. And who I am today will not survive a newsroom in 2025. Like I think I can, But Lord, every time I turn on the news, I'm like, oh no, I don't think so. Yeah, I've definitely doubled down on the comedy. I've still been producing, whether that's helping clients with social media strategy and editing viral videos for like my medical clients or a real estate client. Like I'm still using the gift, but I've really tapped more into stand up because stand up has been such a lifeline for me. It's not about the money. People will tell you, like, journalism, don't get into it for the money because it's not there right away, especially during open mics and during the club scene. But I've now been doing stand up for 5 years. So it looks like the consistency has been paying off, but I haven't detoured from the call, which is production, which is storytelling and media. And that includes the documentary that I'm working on right now about my grandmother.
Okay. Now, I love that you mentioned that because I think a lot of times for us, right, it's hard for us to come to that realization that a place is no longer serving us. Like the gift is always in you, but where you put that gift into action is the important thing. Why do you think it's so important for dream drivers like yourself who have kind of pivoted, not even pivoted? Maybe it's you're just taking a new lane, right? Like you're taking a new exit along this journey, your dream driving journey. Why is it so important to be okay with not going the way you originally thought you were going to?
Because 9 times out of 10, it turns out better than we expected, and also in the way that we needed it to turn out. 2 years ago,
Mm.
my dream was to marry someone who I had been with for 4 years, and that was not what God had for me.
So
So
not
I had to
today.
be okay with releasing that dream for a bigger dream. I can compare this season of my life to where I was, and when we talked about Sister Circle and in the
Hmm.
last episode, 2023, and me walking away from that show in 2018, that was a spiritual awakening. And I feel like in that relationship and in that season of my life, that God literally had to come get me. He came and got me, and I've been back home in Florida for about a year and a half. My mama ready for me to leave again. It's cute when you come for a week or two, but baby, you got, so shout out to free rent. I'm not leaving in this
Listen,
economy.
listen, that's what community and that's what I think now that I'm a parent, I'm like, that's what it should be about. Like your child having a safe space to land when they need that safe space to land.
Yeah, my mom is hilarious, and I joke about it now, but the most serious thing she said to me in that season was, you can always come home. And I think we need to know when we are pursuing our dreams or even our wants that we can always go back home, whether that is a physical place, a spiritual place. For me, it's even been going back to church. Like that's
Mm. And
where
that was a huge part of your journey. If
yeah,
you guys listen to episode 373, that's where you got your start in storytelling, like your first play that you put on, right? Where they
yeah.
said, "Hey, we're not doing these plays. You're gonna write the play today, Georgia, right?"
Yeah, you're gonna write the play. You're gonna write the play. And they still looking at me like, can you write the play and edit the video? Can you write the play, edit the video, and post it to Facebook? How churches are. But that has been a part of me going back home. So I came back home physically, but I had to come back home to myself. One thing about being back home is people remind you of who you were then, as you started this call with, who were you 2 years ago? Where were you 2 years ago? And my little brother reminds me that I used to have like these manifestations or prayers,
Mm.
and it was basically a vision board, but it was on the back of my door. And so every night that I went to sleep, I was always reminded of that vision. I believe that's a part of coming back home. Because yeah, we read, write the vision and make it plain. Well, my people perish for lack of knowledge. You got to have a clear vision, but if we don't put action to it. And so I'm reminded in coming home that a younger version of Georgia was not afraid to write her vision out, post it up for everybody to see. That's what I'm going to get. That's who I'm going to be.
Before we get into the real story that we came here to talk about today, I just want to ask you because I know that when you were pitching me again to be on the show this time around, you mentioned that like Dreams and Drive, you got a speaking gig or like someone reached out to you there. Talk to me about the power of sharing your story as you're going through it and what can happen from doing that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I feel like when we were talking before that we were just planting seeds in that conversation. I did not know what would come of it, but Yes, I pitched you, and I'm not afraid. I think sometimes people are scared to pitch, but
Relationships, you
I
mentioned
was
that in the first episode, right? All
yeah,
about
I was
relationships.
already wanting to reach out to you again. I forgot what episode it was, something you posted on LinkedIn, and I was like, man, this podcast is such a blessing. I want to be back on. I want to talk about the documentary. But a few months ago, I got an email invitation to speak on a panel called Finding the Funny at a journalism conference, the National Association of Lesbian and Gay Journalists, and they invited me to their conference in Atlanta to be a panelist as a comedian and as a producer. And I believe that's also
Wow.
something that we talked about is that duality and feeling like I had to put one away. And so that was so affirming for me that they recognized that yes, I'm a journalist, I'm a producer, but I'm also really funny and I want to share that with people. And so it was affirming in that, but also, hey, call Raina, share the testimony about this conversation because that put me in the room with Netflix executives, like people who were just at the
Wow.
conference for other things, and people who were on the commission for the Georgia Film Commission, other producers, documentary filmmakers, like that started new relationships. And that's all because she found the podcast that we did 2 years ago and was like,
That's so crazy. And like that's
that
also
just
a
blessed me.
testament
Yeah.
to me too, because like these past 2 years have been crazy for me. This past year, my father passed away. So like
Oh,
just since
sorry to hear
last
that.
November has just been tough. And I'm just like, should I keep going? Should I keep doing this? Like I'm not releasing as consistently. But just the fact that somebody out there, we don't know when she heard it, right? Or like when she stumbled across the podcast, but because it was
Girl, she
there.
Googled it. That's your SEO, baby. She
Oh,
Googled that.
oh,
That's
what
SEO.
comedians, producers, and
Journalists. Yes. And she said, there's not a lot of you. This was one of
that's
the first
so
results.
crazy.
Yeah.
That also shows make sure you have a website as well so you
And
get that,
show notes
yeah.
really matter. Yeah.
That is so dope. It makes me think about something that you said in that first interview. I'm reading it because I took a note on it. You said I'm chasing my own authenticity, right? You
Ooh.
were on this journey to chasing your own authenticity, and what that inspired in me in talking about this next stage of your life. You are producing, or what is it? This stage now with the Winged In Queen? Is it in like pre-production? Like what do you call that in the filmmaking world?
Pre-pro, yeah, it's in
Okay.
the pre-funding stages. Like it's yeah, we haven't started to film yet, but I've been working on it for 2 years.
Okay, so you are currently undertaking pre-production for a documentary called The Winding Queen that's all about your grandmother, who also shares the same name as you. And it made me think about this idea of chasing your own authenticity and who you are, going back to your roots. I didn't even know you were still, you're back in Florida, right? So like we got the
Full
perfect journey to
circle.
go on today. Talk to me about why coming back to yourself and who you are really inspired you to undertake this project?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what a straightforward answer what that is. Like, it's something I've always been called to do and something I've always run from. I felt like because I share my grandmother's name that I've lived in her shadow rather than
Mm.
her light and that she's someone I've always been compared to. And that's a tall, tall order. She was a restaurateur and a mother of seven, and she was killed on Mother's Day in 1982 in a high-speed chase by her son-in-law. And it was a domestic violence situation where my grandmother was trying to save my aunt from her estranged husband. It was very violent. It wasn't safe for my aunt. It wasn't safe for the children. And he literally stalked her and hunted them both, hired someone to drive a van while he shot into this car with a sawed-off shotgun. And inside the car was my grandmother, my aunt, who was 27 at the time. My grandmother was picking her up from work, but in the back seat was my brother, who was 2 years old at the time, a baby, my cousin, who was 3 months old, his son, the the guy who's shooting, his baby is in the car, and another family friend who was also like in his early 20s. And all of the survivors of that shooting have agreed to talk to me about what they experienced. It's been 43 years since this happened. And the reason I'm doing it now is because I'm watching history repeat itself. My cousin just went back to prison for
Mm.
trying to kill his wife. Ironically, Raina,
Is that the one who was in the car?
No, not the one who was in the
Okay.
car. This is a cousin who has the same name as his father. So I have the same name as our grandmother. He has the same name as his father. And when that situation came about with his wife, even before then, I knew it had to happen. But now there's a sense of urgency because we have to break the cycle.
In just I was reading about it on your website, talked about like this fear that you carried with you. What was that fear?
As a journalist, like I never wanted to be the person pointing the camera in someone's face in their worst moment. And even when would be in the studio and a reporter is out on the scene and every other outlet is going to the door, don't you dare. Don't you dare go to that door and be disrespectful because they'll be more likely to give you the interview because you're a human. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a mechanical reaction if I gotta get this story. And that came up a lot in the newsroom because I really value that. People are people first. And so I never wanted to be the person who caused my family pain again. I
Mm.
never wanted to ask my aunt, who died several times that day, came back to life, baby. She's a
Do you mean
miracle.
physically,
Physically,
actually?
yeah.
Okay.
Died
Like
on
in
the
the
table.
hospital,
Came
like
back,
they,
yes. She was shot in
wow.
the head and the arm. And this was her baby who was in the back seat. And she was there when her mother was killed. Like it's such a gruesome scene, but I really, really want to bring the beauty out of it. And the beauty in it is the healing. It's the fact that my family still communicates with each other. It might be toxic, but we still come together for a good dish of macaroni and cheese. And a pound cake, food brings us together because my grandmother was a restaurateur, and that's where
Yeah.
the wing dings come into play. The beauty of the story is people light up. They light up at the memory of a plate they got 50 years ago. Like, come
So
on.
did she have a restaurant or was she just somebody who was like known for like, you know how
Had a
you have,
restaurant. Yeah, she
okay,
had two
okay.
restaurants, but the second one, I believe was the one that, yeah, that was known for the wing ding. So people would come after the club. She was open late. Like people love that. But also like everybody will tell me verbatim, like what was on their plate. I love asking people what they ordered because that's truly the measure of how somebody made you feel. The fact that you can go back to that memory of a taste bud to recall who someone was to you is just so beautiful to me. And I tell people this is the most delicious documentary you've never seen.
Wow. Let's go back to what you said earlier about the urgency of history repeating itself and you felt this calling. What did that feel like? And then what were the first steps that you undertook to start making it go from this idea to happening?
Well, 2 years ago, I was on the showrunner program and we got assigned mentors and we were tasked with developing a project. We got all these resources in front of us. We have community, we have guidance. What would you make? What would you make? And I always wanted to do this documentary. And
Mm.
so, still being a producer, still doing stand up, I'm also in this showrunner program that's meeting monthly, where we had speakers come in from OWN and Fox, and these are executives. Like, it was just so beautiful that they took time out of their day to come and pour into us. But it was during that season that I started to develop the Wingding Queen, and it's gone through several names, but I always knew it was a documentary about my grandmother's life and legacy. But now I feel like it's so much more, the legacy part. This is an
Mm-hmm.
intergenerational issue. It's not a single generation trauma. Although this happened to my aunt and my grandmother, the ricochet of those bullets have been felt in every new life that came in this lineage until we talk about what truly happened. No one's ever talked about it. There are all these whispers about like
So
what
it's like this big,
happened.
it's the elephant in the room and
It's
all
the
the family
elephant in the
getting.
room. They'll only say so much. Like when my aunts talk about what happened, or when they talk about their mother, they come together, and it's often about mama's food, her bread pudding, her catfish nuggets, her wing dings.
Mm.
They debate about how she made them, but they won't talk about what happened that led to that day, that led to her losing her life. So I've been talking to not only them, but everybody in the community. I've been home about a year and a half, and it's been You asked me how it makes me feel. It's been a breaking. It's been a breaking. I just feel so crushed and called at the same time. Like when you're watching something break in front of you
Yeah.
and continue to break, and it's like how much more can we take? We don't have a lot of time. What can we heal in this time? What can we heal in this realm? And I believe by having the conversation that my family is not only going to heal, but other families will start to heal and talking about their secrets and the truth about what's happened to their family. I think that the truth sets us free.
What's the biggest revelation so far you realized about what happens when people start telling the truth, especially in families? Because I'm thinking about my own family, even after my father passed. You probably know, like, there's so many things you might not even know about somebody until they pass. And there might not be things people feel comfortable telling anyone else until that person has passed. I was like, wait, daddy did what? He was doing this. Just little things
Wow.
like that, like little details. What do you think you've been finding out about why it's so important, or what can happen when people start having these conversations?
What I've been seeing in my family is we're healing.
Mm,
And it's happening, I would say fast, but also slow at the same time, but it's happening one relationship at a time. I believe because I started to pursue this documentary, and my whole family's on board. Everybody's been in support. They've started to have conversations amongst each other. Hey, this happened when I was a kid. I really didn't like how it went down. It's impacted
mm-hmm.
my relationship with you as an adult, and I thought that we should talk about it. Like those kind
Yeah.
of conversations are happening. They're not happening on camera, unfortunately, but they are happening, and I'm so grateful for the healing of my cousins and my mom and her siblings as well. One person who I'm really excited about in the documentary is my uncle. He's my grandmother's baby. He was like a late in life baby. I
Mm-hmm.
think she was in her 40s when she had him, and he was 13 at the time of his mother's murder, and he ended up being raised by one of the older sisters. And when I asked him 2 years ago for permission to tell the story and invited him to be involved with it, he was like, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, nobody ever asked me how I felt.
I was just gonna ask you that. He probably was like the forgotten person where, thinking about it, he needed her the most, and he had the least amount of time with her out of all her children.
To hear this Purple Heart veteran say that, nobody ever asked you.
Like, what?
You laid
Bro.
your life down for the country. Like I don't and nobody ever asked you how you felt. He was telling, well, I'll wait for his interview, but that was a revelation for me. The other revelations, one of them has been this wasn't just about my family. Like this
Mm,
didn't just happen to my family. This happened to the community. So many people have described my grandmother, Georgia May, as the soul of Sebring,
wow.
Florida. That's where I'm from, the soul of Sebring. And people of that generation who were like kids who would go hang out at her restaurant, they felt like that was a safe place. They said when Georgia May died, we lost the soul of Sebring. And you look at the Black community versus across the tracks, because I'm in that kind of town. Like you can see the difference. Something broke and something has continued to break. And so if this is healing for us in the community, it has to be healing for the world.
Wow. Um, I keep trying to bring these connections back to that first interview because you never know. You said you were planting seeds. There's so much that you said in that. I think we are joking. At one point, you talked about being remolded by trauma,
Yeah.
right? Talk to me about the idea of remolding and how it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. Because when you think of trauma, when you think of like being reshaped by it, sometimes we think about the negative effects. But what have been some of the positive effects for yourself of undergoing this crushing but healing journey?
I'm someone who believes that it's all for my good. Even if in that season I can barely stand up, you know what I mean? And I gotta call somebody to pray me through that day. I still believe at the core of my faith that it's all happening for my good. I'm being refined by this fire. I will get beauty before the ashes. And on my ugliest day, baby, I be glowing. Like I don't even I don't
Yeah.
even mean to it, but I believe that is beauty for ashes. I've endured so much and it can be healing. Trauma can be healing. A loss, I feel we gain an angel. You know what I mean? Or an ancestor. There's somebody working for us on the other side. And sometimes when we lose things, we realize they were just things. I recently lost my storage unit, and I've been so embarrassed to talk about it because I just could not. I'm getting emotional right now.
I'm
I just could
sorry.
not. It's okay. I couldn't hold on to it anymore. And I paid and I prayed and I paid and I prayed, trying to hold on to this stuff. And when I just couldn't do it anymore, they were like, "Hey, your stuff going up for auction." I was like, "Storage Wars? That's real?" Like I had no
Was
idea.
it up here or was it in New York?
Queens, baby. Queens.
Okay. You know those
Yeah.
New York people, they don't play up in New
They
York,
not
okay?
playing. They
They're
not
like, wait,
they
it's the
finna
21st. It was due the 20th. I'm
they finna
sorry.
sell it.
New
So I
York.
when I knew I couldn't hold on anymore, I felt so much grief. Oh my gosh.
Oh
I mean,
man.
awards, family pictures, my diploma, my degree. I can even tell my mama what was in that storage because half that stuff I stole from her. So I can't even tell her, how great this loss really was for me. So I'm still like mourning that. But at the same time, Raina, I felt lighter. I felt like I was working overtime to hold on to baggage, something that was no longer mine. And I realized about those things that I had in storage, it was an identity that I no longer identified with. I want
Yeah.
I want to keep the seal on my diploma from high school because I was in the math club that nobody ever asked about. Nobody ever asked me about that seal. Don't nobody even ask about that diploma. But at a time in my life, that meant the world to me. I identified with that, with those awards and those things. But I realized all that can be replaced and all that can't be replaced, I didn't need.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think there's probably somebody who's listening who can relate, who's gone through things. I've known we've had people on the show who've had fires, right? And their whole lives burnt. You
Yeah,
know, yours might be somewhere out
it could
there
have been another
somewhere
way.
still, right?
Hmm.
And it's the idea of like realizing you think you need something, but you can still exist even without it. It might be hard. And I think even when it comes to dreams, it's like whose dream are we trying to live? Are we trying to live someone else's dream? Are we trying to live our own dreams? And how do you think pursuing this documentary has really helped you come back to a dream you've always had?
Ooh, that's so good. Oh, I've always dreamed of being a filmmaker. Like I've always wanted to be, a producer. So I feel like I'm still in that role. It helps me come back to a dream also because of the role of comedy in our healing. It hasn't just been about the food and the events that have transpired, but the laughs that we've had in between those moments. Like the I don't know how to say it, but like it heals your DNA. And I recently booked a psychologist, Ivy League trained,
I
baby.
I gotta tell
Ivy
you
League trained
that is
psychologist.
okay. Let me
Yes.
make a note. Let me make a note. I'm gonna come back to something that you said. It heals our DNA because you're gonna be creeped out because this is creepy. What I'm gonna tell you. All right.
I recently booked a Ivy League trained psychologist to contribute to the documentary as an expert. And in our pre-interview, one of the last questions I asked her was about the role of joy in comedy. Because when I look at my family and all they've endured, my aunt has a scar on her face. She's always had it. She's always had it. Well, not always, but since the shooting, since she was 27 years old. And she still finds a way to laugh. She still finds a way to laugh. Like that doesn't define her. That doesn't define her. And nor do the other things that have happened to my family. They still find a way to laugh. And those have been my favorite moments. And so I very much want to focus on in the documentary the role of healing and comedy in healing.
So before you know how you doom scrolling on Instagram, right? Just doing some, doing some research, but also just scrolling on the internet. There was this random post. I've been getting a whole bunch of like mysticism, like stuff that's been popping up on my timeline. Just more about like dreams and people who have died and come back to life, people who've like come outside their bodies. They say like, right before you die, something happens, but if you brought back to life, you can remember it. Near death experiences, all that weird stuff. And there was this one guy who was talking about blood, and he was like, they're in your blood, people who are related, legit. I don't know how real this is, but he was just talking about there's vibrations in blood that people think that blood is just blood, but it's actually like there's power, there's energy in your actual blood. I don't know how that makes sense, but just you talking about like the healing in your DNA, it just made me think about how blood is charged and the blood that we share with people. There's a shared lineage. There's this shared like you can pass down trauma, you can pass down joy, you can pass down all this stuff just through your actual biological, like the nature of your blood. So that was just something that I saw on
That's one
Instagram
of no that
today.
that's in alignment. That's confirmation. That's one of the things that the psychologist says as well, that you can pass down a wound. You can not just the trauma, you can pass down the wound. And I've always felt this weight, this heaviness. Like since I was a little girl, my mom, I write about this in my book, Everybody Knows the Power of Being in Position. I write about my mom taking me to my grandmother's grave when I was 3 years old. And she says that I laid down on the grave. Like I'm chilling. Like I'm with my grandma. Like I've never met her. I never met my grandmother. I was born 5 years later and given her name. And so I just believe that I became a journalist, that I was given this name so that I could tell her story
And bring back the soul that
and bring
she
back the
was.
soul. To that point, when we talk about the soul, since I've been back home, I've been able to bring comedy home. And that is soul. Like when I tell you we were able to bring in people of all walks of life, all different colors, like races, ethnicities. Like it was the most beautiful scene in Sebring, more diverse than the football games. Like
Mm.
that's the only other place you're gonna find that much diversity. Okay. But coming to comedy and coming to laugh, it was so healing, not just for me and my family. My family got to see me perform for those who might never get to go see me out of town. I was able to do a show here, but it was also healing for the community, healing for the 75-year-old Black man, the veteran who always wanted to try stand up, healing for the man who lost his father to suicide 6 months prior,
Mm.
healing for the person who just always wanted to find their voice on stage. And I believe that I am walking in my grandmother's legacy in that way. I might can't cook like I can cook. I can cook for the record, but maybe I can't do it like she did. Maybe that's not my ministry, but my ministry is comedy and storytelling, and that's been bringing people together. We did 10 shows in 10 months, and they were all free to the community.
Wow. And listen, you never like and who knows when the documentary is actually finished and it's released, just how much more that will unleash. But let's talk a little bit just about the logistics. Because I think
Ooh.
there's a lot of people here who might want to make their own documentaries. I'm gonna have to send you. I made a documentary back in college myself. Like everybody, like kind of feels like you. I feel like with our phones nowadays, we all think we're making like we're vlogging, right? We're making mini docs every day, but to make an actually full scale documentary production is it's not the same as just recording on your phone. There's a lot that goes into it. What have you been learning, and maybe what tips? Maybe let's pose it in the idea of tips, right? Like, what tips would you have for anybody out there who wants to start from scratch? I'm assuming, right? Some sort of film work, documentary work. I know making a movie, making a documentary is two different lines, but like, what have you learned, and what tips would you share with those?
Whether it's a film or a documentary, whatever you do, whatever your role, you must do it in community. Part of
Okay.
the thing that has one of the things that's taken me so long is finding that crew. You can only go so far as a
Mm.
solopreneur, but it's so much different when you have people around you. One of the groups I joined was the Brown Girls documentary group.
Is
Sorry, I
that
just want to make
national
sure.
or is it
Yeah,
a
it's national. Brown Girls Documentary Mafia. I joined that a few years ago, and so when I had questions about funding, when I had questions about pitching, I could not only take it to my showrunner group because there were several people, 20 people in that group as well, but now I can go to this other group, the Brown Girls Documentary Mafia, and ask them questions. So have access to resources. And so I'm building my community, but don't be afraid to take your time. I thought this was going to be like a package. I thought I could do it like an MMJ. I thought I could do it all on my own. I can shoot this in a
do it like
weekend,
Sinners?
edit it.
Ryan made Sinners in like a year and a half. I was like, how did he do that? I mean, he got money, but
Now I
still,
was gonna do it in a
that's
week. I was gonna do it in a week. And I spoke to some people who had some experience, who have done several documentaries, and they told me this documentary is gonna take 3 to 5 years. A documentary can take 3 to 5 years. And I was like, what? I thought I was gonna be able to do it faster than that. Like I thought we was gonna be able to like hurry up and do it. And so I've had to embrace the process that it takes time, that it took me having a tragic breakup in New York to send me back home where I could just go to the historical archives and find articles about what happened to my grandmother that I never knew existed. Articles I
Why does it
never
take
knew
so
existed.
long? What about it? Is it the getting the story together or just the background stuff that makes it take so long?
Well, the story's been refined, but definitely funding. Funding's number one, and then you don't just want to throw something together. I thought I could do it like Father's Day, Kurt Franklin's documentary. It's a 30-minute documentary on YouTube, beautifully shot, very simple. I thought I could do it that way. Maybe I still can, but it definitely takes funding. And I have been not just unemployed, but underemployed
Mm-hmm.
for since 2022 was my last like major layoff. And I've just been trying to catch my breath since then. So it's hard to do it when, you also have to manage your personal life.
Yeah.
This is a business. This is a whole nother, LLC. Like I've been developing it under my Georgia Dawkins Media LLC. But once we really get into it, it's a whole nother business.
What has made you so committed to seeing this through to the end? And I say that because a lot of us start things, right? Like there's so many things that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and I just don't stick with it. But why do you think this is something that you're not letting go of?
It won't let go of me.
Mm,
It won't let go of me. When I tell you it'll wake me up out of my sleep or it'll come up in conversation or I'll just look around at my family and see what's happening and see people suffering with PTSD who might not have the language because they've never talked to a therapist. That wasn't even offered to them when this tragedy happened. None of the children who were offered therapy or any
your
type
brother was in the
of
car, right?
resources. My brother was in the car. He was injured. He had um what is it, bullet fragments in him, but he wasn't shot. But he was bloody when my mom picked him up from the hospital. And I just never felt like it was my trauma to go into. But again, the trauma wound can be passed down. And so I just want to heal. I want to heal and I want to see my family heal.
And it's like sometimes something so personal can be so profound for those outside of your personal network, right? And I say that because it's kind of like starting with the problem. Like the problem is I want to help my family heal, but not realizing like diving into something so small can have this huge impact. And I say that because there's so many things that a lot of us are sitting on, but we're like, it doesn't matter to anyone else. Why should I pursue it? What would you say to that person who feels like their dream or this idea that they want to pursue is not big enough?
It just has to be big for you. It doesn't have to be big for everybody else. They'll get with it eventually. I've been talking about this documentary for 2 years, but it just since I posted it on Facebook, people want to get behind it. People love a winning team. And the more you
Yeah.
win, the more people will flock to you. But for me, it's very important to me to take my time and do it right because this is my grandmother's legacy. This is the
Yeah.
only way some people are going to know her. I never got a chance to hear her voice. I
Are
never
there
got
any
a chance to
recordings anywhere?
haven't been able to find him. I mean, my best luck is like the if the police kept anything from their investigation or whatever. But yeah, I don't have that memory. And so it's very important to me to do this right.
Yeah. You also mentioned today that, being on the other side of like being underemployed, still working media, having clients on the side, like how do you navigate that and how do you balance that? Because it's hard for a lot of us out here, right? People like right now, the media industry, I work full time at as a company. If you want to know what company is, you can go and you can see it on LinkedIn, right? But nothing is promised, right? People are constantly, especially with the president that we have. I won't say his name just in case he might try to fire me. Oh, wait, he can't because it's my own podcast, right? But just in the state of this country, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So, how do you keep that balance for yourself, like mentally as well, right? Beyond just the realities of what it means to be trying to make everything work for yourself.
Definitely therapy. Like I can barely afford gas and food some days, but I'm going to therapy. Like I
Mm,
gotta go to therapy. And that's such a huge part of preparing for the documentary as well, has been preparing mentally. My therapist and I have been preparing mentally for years for me to do this documentary, and even how to manage being home back in the place where the trauma happened. Like that's a whole nother chapter of being back in the place where the trauma happened, not only to my grandmother, but traumas that happened to me. I'm
yeah.
being back in that place.
Because, the thing that I keep thinking about, because I love documentary work, I love this type of stuff. Like, the person who I'm interested in hearing her story is your aunt, right? Because I can only imagine the guilt she must feel. But it's also like, I don't know. I mean, this is me trying to be a producer. The questions I would ask her, right? There's so many questions you want to ask, and then how do you delicately ask them? I guess the question for you is, what's been your approach to the storytelling? Because
Ooh.
it is so sensitive. And I say that because a lot of us have questions we want to ask people, but we don't know how to.
hmm And I wrote about that in my book. I was too afraid to talk to my aunt about what happened to her. I've never been brave enough to ask her about her scars, point blank. And it wasn't until 2 years ago, she was the first person I went to say, "Hey, I want to pursue this. Do I have your blessing?" She said yes. I said, "Will you participate?" She said yes. I think it's time.
Mm.
So I am so, oof, girl.
That's the part. Like my heart is hurting. Like, how you can feel it, like right here. I feel it right in my chest because
Yes, we both
as a
grabbed our chest.
mother,
Yeah.
as a mother, as someone who's lost my parent, I could only imagine what she's had to carry, knowing her mom risked her, like, gave her life to protect her daughter.
Yeah.
The ultimate act of love, I would say, as a mother,
I
is
think
what
that's why I
she.
ain't got no kids today, because I ain't laying down my life for now one of them. Not the
You
kids I
say that
know.
now. You say that
Not the
now, but
kids I know. Well,
you.
I'm thinking about, my siblings and then like my nieces and nephews.
I
Like
know, but I'm just saying, like, I think it's like I often say that to myself, but
it is.
you never know what you will do until you have to make that choice.
Oh
So
yeah, I
who
know. I'm
we
going to
never
jail. No,
know.
I would do exactly what my grandmother did. Like that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like that is such a beautiful act of love, but I've been so protective over my aunt and I shouldn't be because she is a gangster. Like these
Mm,
women have endured so much. My aunt is 70. She was 27 at the time of the shooting. She's survived so much. She's been able to see her grandchildren and her great grandchildren. Like
wow.
and raised 7 children. And she lost one. One of my cousins died 20 years ago. She's a survivor. And so I don't care what nobody say about my auntie. She's a survivor, and I will never question a miracle.
Mm,
Who am I to say, why did you survive? Who am I to say why that's not my call. I want to know how have you survived all these years? How can you still, look people in the face, who judge you, who mistreat you to this day because they blame you. So I'm excited about that conversation. And to answer your first question, how I've prepared for these interviews, prayer, therapy, and coming back home.
mm,
I didn't know all that God had called me to in coming back home. Like that comedy show, I didn't see that me hosting a show for 10 months at home. I didn't see that, but even that was a miracle. But most importantly, I've been able to come back home and walk with my aunties, have dinner with my cousins, like just meet my family again, and also for them to meet me.
Yeah.
They know, well, they call me Pooh Bear.
Mhm.
So they know Pooh Bear. They don't know Georgia Dawkins, the producer, comedian, influencer, author. Like they don't know. They see the Facebook post, but I want them to know me. Like
Yeah.
aside from those titles and the things that I identified with, they've helped me refine my voice even more. Because one thing you can't come to your family and do is code switch. Okay. They will not
You mentioned that. You mentioned how like you realized when you were
on
whatever
stage.
environment you were,
Yep.
you would then start to sound like that instead of
My
who you
voice would get
were.
higher and higher and higher. But here, even my auntie, her name is Laquetta. She's a survivor, Laquetta Donaldson. She said to me, Georgia try to be nice all the time, but that don't always work. And I said, "Oh, okay. Okay, permission granted." Because I'm one of them too, like I know them to be bold women who say what comes to their mind. They're unapologetic about their truth. And the least I can do is be unapologetic about mine.
Yeah.
I do people please very often, and she was calling me out. Thank you, Auntie. Call me out. Refine me.
It's kind of like when you're driving in a car, right? Sometimes you got to go park your car somewhere. It's like the park reverse neutral drive metaphor is returning to park where you start is not always a bad thing because you have to know where you came from in order to really understand just how far you can go.
Absolutely.
You have
Absolutely.
to. All of us, I feel like all of us at some point along our journeys, you need to sit back and be like, who am I in the sense of how did I get here?
It's so
And
funny
it
because I,
forms
I
so
I was
much.
feeling like I'm not that person. Sometimes when I get the question about being a producer and a journalist, even when I go to NABJ, I feel very uncomfortable because I'm not that person anymore. I'm not the one running around in the hills trying to audition for a job. It's only three of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not even that many jobs, but I can remember going to the conferences being so desperate for a job.
Yeah.
And so now I show up differently because I've tapped into my voice, and my voice is not, my physical voice, but my authenticity. Like we
Yeah.
talked about, chasing that authenticity. I'm more authentic now, whereas before I looked more like the industry. I sounded more like the industry, and now I can't afford to be the industry.
Mm. And I think it's also too is realizing your skill sets, those transferable skills are the real
Yeah.
things that's going to carry you through. It's not the job. Like AI is here. There's so many jobs. Like for me, working in marketing and media, there's so many things that like who knows if we're going to still be around in 5 years from now. But the skill set, the core of who you are, those are the things that never change. And Georgia, the storyteller, can show up anywhere, right?
Yes, and she's been at the church house lately. They've been hiring me, different churches have been hiring me to do media. And I think that is hilarious, because I'm not in a studio. I'm at the women's conference or I'm at my friend speaking on a Sunday, delivering the sermon, and I'm taking pictures and I'm doing video and I'm editing. I'm still using those skill sets in any realm, so I really appreciate that atmosphere. But also in coming back home, I'm surrounded by people who remind me who I am and who I've
Yeah.
always been. Even the things I forgot about. I'm sorry, but they bring that up too. But that's love. That's community.
Yeah.
That's community, and I needed that. I needed that so much when I came back home.
Um, what do you think? This is the question I had sent to you, but I really want to ask it to you is how do you think undergoing this documentary production, pre-production is changing who you are today? Right. And I say that because we started this interview talking about who you were. And there's a lot of us who are scared to enter into these callings that we have. But what has entering into this calling changed about you as of September 22nd, 2025?
It's Libra season. Let's go. It's my season. My birthday coming up in 2 weeks, but this documentary requires me to be authentic. The more I learn about Georgia May, my grandmother, the more I learned this woman was authentic. Everywhere she went, whether she was saved and sanctified or she was fully out the church, she was absolutely herself. And so I want to be more myself. I used to think I had to be more like Georgia May. Like, that's not who I am. I have my own calling, and telling this story is a part of it. But it has helped me to love more of myself and to be more gentle with myself. And
And that's
also relationships as well. I've always been paranoid about dating crazy people, and I say that lightly, but the man who pulled the trigger, who was married to my aunt, he was sick. He was sick. And so
Do
at
you talk about, do we find out what happens to him in the documentary? Are you going to cover that part, or is it something I
yeah,
could just look up on the internet and
you
figure
can look
out?
it up. So
Okay,
I'll tell
okay.
you now, he died. He died in
Oh, wow.
prison in 2018, the same year that I wrote my book. The first time I ever talked about what happened to my family and how I got my name, he died a few months later. And it wasn't
Wow.
until he passed away that we were able to see the weight that was on my aunt. Nobody ever considered that she was still in fear until the day he died. After he passed away, my auntie started traveling. I was like, girl, not you at the Usher concert. Not you
Wow.
like she has been fully like stepping in, embracing this new life. She just came back from Dubai. She was over in Egypt. This woman from small town Florida who could have lost her life 43 years ago is living her life to the fullest. I don't know what all the like the baggage she carried, but that's definitely something I want to dig into. But yes, he did pass away, but it was in that that I saw the healing that needed to take place because even her own sisters didn't know the weight that she carried. They saw a light come over her, a relief.
And imagine how many people we don't know are carrying some sort of invisible weight on them, right? And like you said, this could inspire someone to let something go. I mean, we don't wish death on anyone, right? But there are some things that literally have to die in order for something new to be born. And it's funny because I was talking about this with my cousin. She also lost her father this year. And she was just like, she's going down to Florida. She's in Florida now. And she's like, I'm going through his things. You know, I'm gonna ship back his car. I actually needed a new car. And I just feel bad. Like, why is it that I'm only able to get the things I needed through loss? Right? Because there's all this stuff now that she's able to now bring back up here to Jersey. And I was just like, let's not think about it that way, right? Because loss is probably the most human experience we're all going to have, right? But think about, I mean, I don't remember exactly what I said. I probably said it better now, but like the idea that I think it is just a part of the cycle of life, and you have to lose something, even when you talked about losing your storage unit, right? But in the loss, there's a lesson.
Oh yeah.
That's all I have.
That no, that's the word. That's the all is not lost. All is not lost. And I believe everything happened the way it was supposed to.
Yeah.
God is so good. When I tell you I've been seeing signs of things that were in my storage, there was a picture that was in the photo albums that my aunt texted to me 3 days later. I hadn't told anybody that I lost my storage. So that
Wow.
she don't even know how much that picture meant to me. And then a few days later, I just felt this heaviness and I was having a rough day. And my homegirl came to pick me up and just take me for a drive. And in her front seat was our 2006 class yearbook that was also something in my storage that I lost. And she said, "Do you want to keep it?" And I said, "No, I don't need it. I know I'm
Mm.
in there 17 times, but I don't need it." Because that again, that was something I identified with. I identified with who I was connected to and how many times I was in the yearbook. There was one year they didn't put me in the yearbook enough. Like I didn't see enough pictures of me. So I created my own yearbook. I went and got a binder, all my favorite pictures. And I labeled them, I put captions on them and stuff, handwritten captions too. And then I passed it around the school. Y'all sign my yearbook, okay? Y'all can
That
sign
is
my yearbook.
hilarious.
But things like that, it's like that's not who you are no more, girl. Be okay with losing it. And just as I said, I felt lighter in that. At first, I felt guilty. Wow, you really failed yourself. Wow, you couldn't even like I was go spiraling.
Mm.
And then God saved me. He was like, "No, you good. If it's meant to come back, it'll come back to you." And so
Yeah.
seeing these little signs of things and the things that my mom kept, the things that my mom kept. My scrapbooks, a scholarship I lost. I, I still hold the scholarship that I lost. I still put that up on the wall because I'm still proud of it. But but it's just stuff. And the most
Yeah.
important thing are the people around us and how we make them feel. Whether I complete this documentary or not, and Lord knows I'm trying, how I interact with my family is the true testament of the healing. The documentary could, be whatever, but how are you really behind the scenes? And that's what we're enduring right now. We really have to heal behind the scenes and in the conversations that we have with each other. And my family's doing that. That's really hard work.
Mm. We talked about keys to success during our last interview, and I want to talk about what do you think those keys to success are for you now as you venture on with getting the Wingding Queen made and you just continue on in your own dream driving journey. Are there keys that are driving you forward today?
Oh man, I want to give y'all some new keys, but number one is community. I
That was
found
that was number one last time, so
right.
it's
Whether
still
I lived in Atlanta, New York City, whether I'm traveling the country doing stand up, community is everything. Community is everything. So that's definitely one. Two, I would say resilience. Being
mm,
able to keep getting up even when you failed yourself. Being able to keep getting up even when you failed well, you feel like you failed everybody around you. Like that's not what matters. What matters is the fact that you keep getting up.
yep.
And one thing I know is that I don't want anything to happen. I'm not gonna want anything to happen to me before I complete my assignment. Like I'm locked in. I'm locked in. And the minute I get distracted, God nudges me right on back. You gotta do
Like, come
that dot.
on, Georgia.
You gotta do that dot, right? So, and then the third key to success that I would give you is comedy. It's
mm.
comedy. Comedy is medicine. It it is so healing for you inside and out. Just think about how much lighter you feel after a good belly laugh. It's not just about the punchline and what was said, but the healing environment. There's so much trauma around us. There's so many things around us that are reshaping us day by day, minute by minute. But if we can hold on to our community, our resilience, and our sense of humor, I
And
think we'll be okay.
comedy allows conversations to happen in ways that like comedy kind of is like a balance in ways a balanced way to have hard conversations or to start the conversation or hard conversation sometimes because it's like we got to talk about it. So let's just laugh first. Let's get everyone's nervous system regulated, right?
Right, right.
We're all cool and then we can dive into it. And they say comedians, like I think some of the discourse around him, with Marlon Wayans is saying that comedians actually have the best ability to
Range.
go
Oh yeah. Range.
everywhere. So
Absolutely. Another comedian I really enjoy right now is Brandy Denise. And Brandy is known for her work on the Power series, and also being a stand-up comedian, but she also appeared on Abbott Elementary, and she was like a disgruntled mother, and she was probably one of the most dramatic characters you've ever seen on Abbott.
I'm gonna
And
look her up. Brandy Denise. I've
Brandy
never.
Denise, yeah.
Okay.
And she just shows so much range in her acting. And I feel the same way about Marlon when he was in Aretha. He brought drama. He is very talented. He's very talented.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need humor. I know I need it. I know it makes me feel better. Sometimes I tell myself jokes on the way to sleep. I'm just like, I'm telling my own bedtime story. And
We need that.
yeah, like I just ain't nobody here with me. I might as well. Like
Exactly. Tell our dream drivers where they can help keep the winding going. I know I want to say you had a fundraiser going. I think you reached the goal, but whatever the next goal is when you're launching, where they can find you online and connect and just stay tuned for the journey.
yes, you can follow the Wingding Queen on Instagram. You can also follow at Georgia Dawkins on Instagram as well, at the Wingding Queen or at Georgia Dawkins on Facebook or Instagram, and also www.georgiadawkins.com. Yes, I brought the www
And
back.
everything will be
I
linked in the
brought it
show
back.
notes. I will make sure that we have that because you never know. Someone might search this and be like, comedian, author, producer who also made a documentary. You might be at
Come
another
on.
conference, right? You
Speak
might.
that. Speak that. I absolutely receive that. And we're going to do some more funding. I'm just waiting to solidify my team because I don't want to put the project in jeopardy by pursuing it on my own. That is a
Yeah.
risk. That is a risk. So I've taken a pause right now just to solidify the team, got the deposit on the videographer, and we're gonna take it to the next level. Yeah.
I'm locked in. I'm locked in because there's so many questions I have. I'm like, if you ever need someone to just be a virtual,
Send them
a
to me.
virtual,
Yes.
a virtual interviewer, I have questions of just not even knowing anything, but just like what I'm pretty sure people who are going to be watching the documentary might want to know, like, how does she feel? Like, how does she hold on to that for those decades? And even just the ability of like still living in fear when someone is not a real threat. And I say that, but the threat could have still been there, but the physical threat maybe not. But who knows, right? You
Yeah,
never
the
know.
threat is access. The threat is who they
Yeah.
have access to. I mean, people in prison have access, so they might not be
It's
there physically, but they can reach people.
yeah.
Just like he had accomplices that day, you don't know who's with him, who's in cahoots
Yeah.
around you, and you live in the same town where it happened. So just think about the paranoia of going to the grocery store, not knowing.
And still having to be resilient and still having to raise 7 kids and still having to like make them not feel the fear that you're feeling every day. That's crazy to me. And it's ugh. And then maybe even like I would assume the guilt of like, should I have known better or should I have said something or maybe if I didn't say anything, it's there's so many what ifs, but we could sit here all day and talk about that. This was so
Thank you, Raina.
amazing, Georgia. I'm wishing you all the luck, all the love. I appreciate you for reaching out to me. Whenever people reach out to me, I'm like, you still want to be on my podcast? I really appreciate it. And it's just validating that keep going for my own self because, like I said, this year has been tough. I haven't been consistent, but it's like when I do have those moments, it makes me remember my own calling because I love doing this. Like, I might not be the biggest podcaster, but I know like the stories that I'm sharing on this show are so amazing. And I know I have the ability to help people tell their stories. So thank you.
I'm a big fan. I am so proud of you. I'm
Thank
honored
you.
to be back on your show and just so honored to see you in your gift, to see you refine your gift. And just it's not about the following, it's about the impact. And
Yeah.
you are impacting everybody who comes on this show to the point where a CNN executive Googled me and found
That's
me
what
on the
I was like.
show.
I need to.
Like, that's beautiful.
You just think about like it's not really about like the numbers, it's about the impact. And it's like even just the community of like I think about like Beatrice, what's her name, there's so many people who've been on the podcast. I'm like I've talked to them before they were huge. And like Beatrice, she made the honey pot, the honey pot, like the pads. She
Yeah,
just launched a book. I'm like I
big
had her on the
fan.
podcast in 2017. What's her name? Slutty Vegan, Pinky Cole. Now
Yep.
she's doing all this stuff. I'm just like, listen, I know when they go back and people are like trying to interview them, they probably stumbled across these earlier podcasts to learn more about what they were thinking early in the days. So yeah, it all matters.
And
It all
that
matters.
adds some, validation, for people who may not have heard of you and found my interview and saw those names. So
Yeah.
thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you for
We
the
gonna
work that
talk.
you're
We gonna
doing.
talk. This is keep me
I
updated.
appreciate you.
And if
Yeah.
there's anything from the documentary side that you might need, I don't know how it could be a resource, but if there's ever anything that you might have questions about that you think I could be helpful, just let me know, okay?
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I love all the questions you were asking too. So if you have any more from my auntie, send them my way because I might
All
have
right.
a blind spot.
Yeah, because I'm just like, wait, but what about this? What about there's so many things that I just was thinking about, but we will chat.